So welcome everybody. We are going to be starting our webinar now. So just so you know, we are recording the session so that we can share with all of those that were not here today. My name is Thiago. I am a member of the Professional Development Team of the Erasmus Mundus Association. And today I would like to invite the president of the Erasmus Mundus Association to be the speaker here. As I mentioned, I would like to invite everybody to send us here through the question section, send us a little hello and tell us where are you now and what are you up to. Just introduce yourself. So without further ado, I would like to invite Pavan to the floor. Pavan, can you say hello?
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you. You can go right ahead.
Thank you very much, Thiago, and thanks to the ones who are making time on a Saturday to attend this webinar, and also interested to learn more about the association moving forward. It's really nice to see a lot of new names. I'm not sure if many of them are the new EMA members or going to start Erasmus Mundus program or just started now recently. So it's good to get more information about who you guys are. I know Giselle, she mentioned about herself. Nayab, I know very well, but the rest of you, it'd be great if you can mention where you are from and what Erasmus Mundus Masters have you done or doing, just to get for us some kind of an information so that I can tailor this discussion accordingly. Myself, Pawan Sriram, I'm currently the president of the organization. We just completed like 1 year now within the steering committee, and I did my Erasmus Mundus Masters in computational mechanics between 2008 and 2010. Since then, I've been pretty active as an EMA member. Started my journey as a program representative, like a PR, and then worked in different service teams until now to lead the organization. So for those of you who are not aware about, we carried out a survey called Erasmus Mundus Voice Matters. That means the voice of Erasmus Mundus members. So the whole idea was to understand, when we started as a steering committee, like what are the real needs of the members. Through those survey and also through the various previous work which we've been carrying out, we felt that there is a strategic need for EMA's structure to evolve. So the first structure was created way back in 2006 when the number of members who were involved were around close to 37. And now we have grown close to 15,000 members in over a decade. And that also calls for, of course, the structure has evolved slowly in a functional manner. But certainly there's been a lot of challenges or a lot of differences, or not called differences, but changes which has happened, which has triggered EMA to evolve in a more coherent and a convergent manner to meet its sustainable goals. So with that, I would like to showcase the next slide. Yeah. So since many of you are new, I'll just try to give a bit more background information regarding this particular slide. So EMA is existing since 2006, as I said. We have had 5 different steering committees before our team here now. There's lots of progress, lots of volunteer works, lots of efforts have been put from many businesses, and things have evolved in significant manner. But right now, this particular, like 2017-18, has been a bit challenging in the sense that for the first time, the community portal, which was specifically developed in those 10 years for the EMA members specifically, doesn't function anymore because of no more service provider. So only now, just a few months ago, we finally had the service provider, but they are in transition phase to ensure and upgrade this community portal. So we are working on a project called EMA Digital. So the idea is to make the digital transformation related to the website. As you see, the website is quite outdated. So we are working on improving the website and also the community portal. So there is a bit of lag in communication, especially to have an outreach to the members. Secondly, we started off as an independent organization getting funding from the European Commission, and then we used to get a joint funding supporting us and another organization called Oceans, which was for mobility exchange between EU and industrialized countries. Since 2013, things have changed. So we were put under a larger umbrella called ESA, which was Erasmus Plus Student and Alumni Association, recently renamed as Alliance. So things have changed and things are also structuring there. So that means that the collaborative efforts or the independence of EMA when it comes to managing its own budget and managing its own activities is quite dependent on funding sources through ESA. So 2015, we became legally independent. That means that we can generate our own funds, we can involve in projects as an independent entity, and we can go on running the organization much more independently without much support of the funders. So with that keeping in mind, when we took on board in 2017, the new team when we came in, we tried to establish an EMA secretariat. It was quite a success in the beginning, but gradually we also realized that it's not so easy to generate funding or even motivate people without having much of remunerations or much of what do they get out of being active part of EMA. So that's been one of the biggest challenge, the recruitment of the active members to keep everybody engaged, motivated, because people don't necessarily see the value of the skills and career prospects which they can gain from being an active member in EMA itself. This gives a very global perspective of working in a very multicultural environment, and also really lift up your skills working with a team in a complex environment with different time zones and different schedule where everybody is either a student or working full time, and how are you keeping up the pace of the volunteering. So that's a very exciting thing to even know in the first place. So the uncertainty about the Erasmus Plus Student Alumni Alliance. So this alliance, it's kind of still in a very early phase. So there's a lot of uncertainty how it's going to function, and there's a lot of discussion of whether there be more alumni organizations which will be brought into this particular per se. So, and then there's a lot of great work which is being done by several of the volunteers, but still the impact, the outreach of these good work is not necessarily that visible. So we need to definitely work much and much more on that. Ultimately, all these challenges calls for us for not just having an efficient and effective structure, but also have a very agile and a flexible structure which caters the needs of not only the members, but also the various stakeholders. In that way, we expect ourselves to be very more strategic in having a higher outreach and a global impact. Any questions, just feel free to write in the question section. So I'm more than happy to discuss them as we proceed, or also in the end, we can discuss more on that. So for those of you, the current structure of EMA, so this is how the current structure is formulated. As I said, this is over a period of decade, how it's been developed. It is very much like a member-centric, and the functions, most of them evolved over a period of time, depending on the needs of the service teams. So, but if you see the naming of the structure, naming of the teams, the roles, there's a lot of confusion because there's a presidents at different levels of chapters, there is steering committee, there's lots of different acronyms and lots of different confusions which can have overlap. And also many of the teams tend to do many similar activities. So there's a lot of overlap which could be avoided. So far, the steering committee consists of 7 members, president, vice president, and the 5 service team leaders. And then we have our vice president, Lucia. She, along with Georgiana, support the ESA activities. There are representatives on the ESA board. And then we have the regional chapters, which is led by Kate right now. and then it has 12 regional chapters, which caters almost different parts of the globe. And within those chapters, we have something called country representatives, trying to cater or be ambassadors of the regions. And then we have EMA networks. So again, the activity in EMA networks is fluctuating, but there have been lots of good work which has been done related to sustainability, related to entrepreneurship, related to humanities, so education. So there are certain networks which is very focused on bringing different Erasmus Mundus students and graduates focus on a specific topic. The program representatives representing the whole body of Erasmus Mundus joint masters. So every master's program have a program representative. So this is a collective team which is represented by years of program representatives. And then Course Quality Advisory Board, which helps with the EMA graduate survey, and they carry out various other surveys related to PhD, and also they act as a student advisory, like an ombudsman for the students to receive any kind of feedback for the development of the Erasmus Mundus Masters Program, or feedback related to the challenges what they're facing, etc. And within, as I said, within that, there are the separate two sub-teams. So this is how right now most of the activities are organized. But as you see, the empowerment for the team leaders below each of the activities is very little. So in this respect, based on the survey, based on the discussions what we've been having within the steering committee, and based on the history of EMA, we decided that right now we need to reorganize, or rather we need to evolve by building the organization for the future. Because if we don't do it now, we might fail to catch up on ensuring the sustainability of EMA, because then we'll be always dependent on funders, which is becoming less and less as we proceed every year. So this particular strategy has been developed, or this been rather than strategy, this particular structure has been developed keeping in mind the criteria for a good structure. So there are a few bullet points which I would just like to emphasize on. First of all, it is very important that the roles and responsibilities are extremely clear, and everybody knows what is their role, what are the tasks they're doing, what are the activities they're doing, and at the same time that become much more visible for an external body or an external person. So in this way, this also adds on to who is the decision maker, what kind of decisions each role can take in, and the whole confusion about who does what and for what outcomes we want to minimize in the current structure. We definitely would like to enable more accountability at different layers of the organization. And also, it is important that the members who are part of this network feel good experience of being part of the organization. Members need to feel that they're not running around within the community, but rather exactly know when to get what kind of information and how they can actually contribute, and also at the same time how they can get significant benefit of being part of the organization itself. Most importantly, we would like to connect a much more active workforce who can work with each other in a nicer manner. And it's important that the communication is, of course, improved further, because right now, as you see, we all are at different time zones located in different parts of the globe. So it's very important that how we ensure we have better control over information across the boundary. So we went back to the drawing board when we took over the legacy from the previous board, and based on the discussions, based on all the survey, we came up with this first rough draft. It's not even very professional, but this was the first kind of drawing board kind of ideas, ideation which happened. So the idea was trying to move away from this current existing non-flexible structure to something which is much more visible. Everybody can connect to with the naming of the team. Everybody can connect to the positions and the roles, and there is more clearer distinction between the roles, but at the same time, this whole organization will become more project-based rather than process-based, which has been the case. So with the first draft, since I see a lot of new names, I would just like to touch upon what was the discussion. This was presented, as I said, on the May 28th this year to the whole community. In that discussion, what we had was of course, the presidential team kind of looks after the ESA board and also the external relation, the partnership and collaboration. And then we decided that, okay, we need to move away from the service team and establish units. And the units will be focusing on several aspects, starting with students and alumni relations, which is much more visible than just program representatives or professional development. So it's like combining what we're already doing in different teams and seeing the overlap and bringing them together. So this would be a very interesting per se, but also it will really empower the whole organization, specifically targeting the members, where most of the members fall into this category. And then communications and IT, they are standalone. They used to be at some point of time when EMA was established together. For whatever reason, they were kind of separated, but we see more value of them being together because they definitely go hand in hand. IT today doesn't have a voice in the steering committee. It's partly taken by the professional development team, and we have an IT team established, which now Amir is heading. So the idea is to bring these teams together to ensure there's a smoother flow of communication, there's a smoother flow of activities related to visibility and promoting our brand. The third unit, which used to be called as regional chapters, the whole idea was trying to make it into an international cooperation and outreach unit, because right now we see that the chapters are functional in certain parts of the world, but in many parts they're not, because the countries are so huge in some cases, or the continents are so huge. It is very difficult to ensure that we have a good representation just governing from one part or few other countries' part. For example, say Africa, we have the African board present in 3 or 4 different African countries. The rest of 30 plus African countries are not even represented. So it's a way for us to move away from this kind of a thinking to establish more local level units. So the idea is to move away from this regional chapters from a very hollow, big perspective to more grassroots level campus Erasmus Mundus. I will touch upon that in the next slides or in the coming slides. Secretariat, as I said, we established the Secretariat. We have some good success where some of them are very proactively involved. So the idea is to really make EMA financially more independent as we proceed. And we see that it is a kind of a significant amount of work we put in the steering committee, but the organization can only be really successful and independent when people at different layers understand what they're really contributing to, and if they can also involve in a bit more active manner. For this, we also need an independent function. So we have been discussing like how to develop remuneration program for members who are actively involved. So the idea is that the volunteers get some kind of a subsidy or some kind of remuneration for their work. For that, we need to ensure that we come across as a professional organization so that people can have us in projects which will generate more partnerships and more sponsorships and more project money, which could be used in different activities and different tasks to sustain ourselves and also to pay the volunteers some nominal contribution money. The international project units, it doesn't exist as of today. We haven't managed to completely establish because it requires a specific skill sets to work in this project unit. Of course, in every unit, you need a specific skill sets, but a project unit requires a bit more advanced skill sets or rather all kind of skill sets, because here we're going to work very closely in projects related to, say, Erasmus Plus or different national level fundings within EU or outside of EU. So this becomes an interesting task of who have that kind of an experience or who are good at writing proposals or managing projects. So we need a specific skill sets there. So that will be our focus moving forward to establish one in the coming months. So based on this first drawing board sketch in May, the steering committee once again over the last few months have reiterated and discussed this. And here is almost the final version of how the structure would look like, or how we foresee this with the discussion. And we did have this feedback on the May when we presented it. We had a lot of good feedbacks, and based on that, this is how it's all boiling down to. So now if you see, the presidential team will still be responsible for the ESA board, but the internal affairs which used to exist as a service steering committee will be part of the presidential team, because they have to really tie up closely working on the internal structure and the statute amendments, on the policy changes, etc. So there's a team specifically on that. And the secretariat, like the treasury, like the finance, which we have tried to establish to a certain degree, kind of fits in very well here within the presidential team. Of course, there will be leaders for these roles, but this will be within the bigger umbrella. And then we are moving away from the service team coordinators to directors, and then within so there will be directors for these teams. So it's communication and IT, student and alumni relations, projects unit, external relations, which is very much focusing on partnership and sponsorship, and outreach and cooperation. So within the projects unit, we'll also have a policy unit. So we could maybe even call it as international projects and policy unit. So this will be the new way how we function. And then within these teams, you'll have head of units, which will be catering different types of projects. And then you have project leads, because we consider each of the project can vary anywhere between a week to say 6 months or a year. So based on that, we will have project leads. So this gives a bit more flexibility for people to learn different kind of skills and work on different kinds of projects and enhance their competence, enhance their volunteering experiences, which they can actually use in their CV or apply in their current job. So this is how we want to make the organization leaner, simpler, and also very visible for the internal and external stakeholders. Along with that, we have a cross-cutting unit, which will be more functional, say, as a human resource, providing training, building capacity, and also ensuring the volunteer program is more organized in a very professional manner. And this, of course, we could see how it could be further developed, and then have task force leads and also probably even head of units for this. So in this way, it's very similar to how the commissioners align themselves. So the idea here is to establish some kind of organizational structure, but at the same time be very agile and network oriented. In this way, what we think is that it will empower each team to really come up with bottom-up idea and to execute it and to take decisions on a ground level without it going through the steering committee on each and everything. So we want to be much more flexible in that sense. So the next slides, it's mainly explains what I was trying to do in the previous slide. So this is how we like to proceed further. And if you see a bit more deeper into the student and alumni relations, we have the PRNet, task of professional development, community development, and CQAB, the various other services. We aim to combine them together here. The international project, as I said, it doesn't exist, but then we have some good experience with the secretariat, with CQAB, and also some previous projects which we are part of as an associate member organization, but we would now be active part. We want to apply as an active organization. So, and the other two will be working specifically on focusing on. Means right now, our vice president, she's leading the partnership and sponsorship team, and they're really coming into place. And the idea is to really make that a significant part for us to generate lots of. So if you see communications and IT, it's very much internal. So they're more service oriented for EMA structure, and also some aspects they will be involved in different projects, helping EMA in different projects, but mainly they're dedicated for EMA's internal structure, but also external visibility, of course. But students in alumni relations, they will be very much focused on EMA's internal members, their needs, what kind of products and services we need to develop for them. But the rest, two units, which is the international projects and the partnership and external relation, they're very much on the idea of generating funds. So the expertise from student and alumni relations will be used for being in projects and also developing partnership and sponsorship. And of course, the outreach and cooperation kind of is a cross-cutting across these three units. But the main focus there is to establish grassroots level activities, grassroots level partnerships, sponsorships, get some partners from different parts of the globe into projects, etc. So the whole of this will be kind of foreseed through a professional, the professionalizing project, and also the new cross-cutting team, which is having more an HR role in the organization. So the idea is that so far we have organized more for efficiency and effectiveness. So being volunteers, we're always time crunched. It's always a challenge to keep everybody motivated to deliver things on time. So how can we move from this kind of organization to more learning, innovation, and member and societal focus? So how can EMA play a vital role in trying to really make a difference in the societal challenges? And secondly, right now, the decision, the structure, the leadership progression, everything is very hierarchical in some way. Even though we function within the team very flat, there is decision making which has to go through some kind of a hierarchy. So the idea is to empower people at the local level to different parts of the organization. In this way, there is triggered to more collaboration and more knowledge sharing. So the idea is to move away from kind of having our own protected boundaries to more collaborative and knowledge sharing kind of projects. So move away from a very function-based structure, which we are to some extent today, to more on projects and teams, which is more focused on the member needs and of course the stakeholders, and create the services and products according to the needs of members and stakeholders. So far, the advancements in these roles have always been through elections. Of course, democracy mattered, but sometimes, or most of the times, we might end up having people who not necessarily have the right skill sets to do the right task. So it would be always challenging for the teams and also for everybody else. So the idea is through advance through assignments, from doing good work, having diverse experience within EMA and outside of EMA, and also involve actively to be a multifunctional leader. So that's something we would like to encourage the members to take responsibilities on. So again, the idea is move away from this whole election concepts to aware or create some kind of a follow base which will have a significant influence on the society. So we would like to generate members and also others involved actively to see EMA as a potential change maker organization, which we are already to a larger extent, but we would like to further bridge on that. And of course, move away from a very process-based organization to project-based, which we have already started. And this structure will help us to move in a better way. So in 2006, when we started, this is how the structure was, which you can see in these green boxes, very structured. There's a president, this is this team, there are certain roles, certain tasks. But in reality, in 2017, 2018, this is how things are. it's quite complex. It's very much challenging. And then the way this is going to work, of course, is many clusters across the globe trying to replicate and do some good job at a local level, at national levels, and at the international level. So the idea for us is that not only the steering committee members share a common value and culture regarding EMA, but each and every member who is active, who is very interested and motivated to be an active part of the organization, shares the same value and culture, and also those who are not necessarily actively involved still cherish the same values and culture. The idea is to make the whole process transparent and project based, because more transparent we are, the members will see the value of being active within the organization. As I mentioned before, we would like to improve the information flow and feedback in a much more faster manner. So this structure will help us to achieve that. At the end of the day, we definitely would like to work and make the whole experience more rewarding, not only for the skills and the abilities, but also with regards to some kind of a benefits or incentives which the members can gain. So, and finally, the idea is to move away from a rigid structure to something which is more agile, collaborative, adaptive, and team-centric than what it is today. And so the next steps in this is that, of course, we have presented this now, and this discussion has been over a year with lots of good feedbacks, with lots of improvements. So the sub-teams could be developed in a more organic manner once we have clarity about how the structure is going to look like. So now the internal affairs team is working on making the statute amendments to incorporate these structural changes. So, okay, one thing which I really forgot to mention is that if you see in this slide where we have this outreach and cooperation, we have also been discussing how to include the Action 2 members who were also Erasmus Mundus grantee. Most of them, or 95% of them, are gone back to their respective countries, but they really haven't been, their skills and potentials haven't been tapped. So this unit will look into incorporate them also proactively within this EMA community, in which we can enhance lots of local level projects and activities while increasing our member base across the globe. So right now, this will be the work has been going on in the background, and there will be every month there is a webinar series planned to discuss about, okay, this month it's more about the EMA structural change, then it's more about the GA, then it's the internal affairs and statute amendments. So until January, we would, as I don't know how many of you know, but we have the General Assembly for 2019 between 23rd and 25th of February in Vienna. So most of you are going to get an official invitation, but it depends if how many of the people will get full funding. But those who can manage by themselves to come there, that's also great. So during these days, we will be voting for these changes. So what kind of support we expect from you is that when we have these amendments made, we will present this officially, hopefully in January. So during those, of course, we would like you guys to listen to this and then come prepared to GA, having a very clear awareness about the need for such a change, because this is actually triggered by you guys. So it would be very interesting for us not to see this getting passed. It would be great to see and get some critical feedback for making these changes, and also help us develop an evolved structure that will meet the strategy needs. So we are going to also discuss on the strategy 2024 at the GA. There will be lots of workshops on organizing and developing the strategic needs of EMA. So for those of you who haven't really spent time on looking into the survey, the Voice of EMA Members 2017, and also the Action Plan 2018-19, they have been published online on EMA website. So kindly please go and read through this document, because a a lot of information which I'm presenting right now. It's already been written, documented, based on all the inputs from different stakeholders. So there's a lot of hard work which is being put in working and developing these two documents. So kindly please spend some time to understanding. If you've never been part of EMA, this is a great way for you to understand what EMA means and what we do, etc. Because it's a very holistic information which is available in these two documents. So this is where we stand as of 2018, and hopefully in February 2019 we will be able to execute this, and then post which within 4 or 5 months we will be able to implement. So the idea what will happen is the current steering committee members or the leaders will take these director role as an interim director from the GA until the actual selection of the new directors will happen hopefully in September 2019. So that's the idea. So we are in a transition phase, but hopefully this is a very exciting time, and we really look for a lot of positive vibes and support from the whole community. This is for us, and this only will ensure that when we look back in 5 years, 10 years down the lane, we will feel proud of we managing to develop a new structure which will meet the needs for next 5 to 10 years. And hopefully the coming leaders will also, in 4 or 5 years, also look for if there is need for, again, making these organizations much more flexible. Because we are in a time of change, things are changing, the jobs are changing. So we also would like to see how we evolve our organization over a period of time to meet the needs of the market or members. I think that's it really from my end. So I'm open for questions. I see that there's not any questions so far here, but anybody have any questions, please kindly feel free to ask here. And I'd be more than happy to spend time to discuss the same right now.
That's great. Nice, Pavan. I think it was a very concise and a very interesting presentation. I think while we wait for other questions here, I had a question myself. These are things that I could ask other people, I guess, but I'm sure that might be relevant. For instance, about the web portal. In the past, we had an old portal for EMA, and we had all those profiles of people and all that information that was there. I remember when I joined EMA in 2015. There were already 200 people from my master's who were signed up on the web portal. As I understood, that information was unfortunately lost, or what's the situation concerning that?
Thanks, Thiago, for bringing that important aspect. So in 2015, we tried to move from the old community portal, which was on Tixit or whatever platform, to something upgraded version. So the service provider were requested to make the community portal much more exciting and more useful for the members to be more active and interactive within the community. So during the transition, this was something which was never mentioned to us, that they will not be able to do the data transfer from the old to new, because everybody needs a consent sign or whatever according to a German law. So this kind of troubled us in the whole migration process. So most of the database or the email, we do have it, but we cannot literally use it in just plugging in into the new database. So anyway, this whole community thing is kind of quiet for some time now, but there's a lot of work, there's a lot of discussion with the European Commission, with the new service provider, which this team is doing right now. The only thing I can ask is for your patience, and we will definitely have a resolve. Hopefully, we will be able to present something exciting before February 2019 at the GA, where hopefully we'll be able to launch, or at least make the community portal a revamped version ready, where also the members database is embedded because we can hopefully get information from the commission directly. I don't know. This is something the IT team is working on, but I'm confident that the team who is working on are really on it, and will ensure that by the time we leave our terms, we will ensure the upcoming team will have this in place.
That's interesting. Thank you. Thank you for the answer. I had been wondering about that for a while. I would like the people who are still online here with us, and I know most of the names here. If you guys have questions for Pavan concerning the suggested structural changes, maybe Pavan could go, I don't know, back to one of the slides if this inspires people to comment on something. We're waiting for your questions here. Otherwise, we can also close the webinar a little earlier. I personally have a question, comment, which is very specific. It's not, I don't think it's as broad as it should be, but I'm a big fan of the PRNet, and we have Carolina here with us, who was, I'm not sure at the moment, with PRNet, the program representatives. I've always, in the professional development team, we at some point discussed that it would be great if instead of just one program representative, we could actually try to create 1, 2, or 3 positions specific for just the one program. So maybe have, for instance, a representative for the current students for the first year, for the second year, and then have another representative as an alumni. Because if we have those 3 people as representatives, and if they have a connection between them, then we have alumni sharing information with current students, and also current students talking about the current problems and current needs of the program. We know that, I mean, Carolina is the person to talk about this, not me, but as a program representative, before, I know that some programs don't have a representative at all, and then some other programs have, sometimes a few people applying to be. So this, of course, there is a demand in some programs and others not. I don't know, Pavan, if you guys ever thought about this issue of maybe trying to expand this idea of the PRNet to not just the one position,
idea is
but to more than one position.
Expand the concept of PRNet, but rather cater exactly the needs what you said. So the idea is that there will be units for students specifically, for alumni specifically, and also there will be units which will be specifically catering the cross-cutting of the students and alumni. So that's how we foresee this, that of course, what are the services and products we need to develop specifically catering the prospective students, the current students, and also alumni. So this team will be focusing on 3 different layers of activities and projects. So within that, of course, we can come up with the idea of representatives for current students and alumni. That could work also. But that is something, a discussion which needs to happen at the GA. Once we pass this, hopefully, if we get a yes, that means that we can spend the second day discussing on the components of the team structure for these teams itself. And we would put the members at the GA for a nice, interesting workshop, co-creation workshop to develop the components in a much more interesting manner. Of course, we'll be giving the basic elements and tools, but hopefully that will result in some exciting outcomes. All such ideas which you're mentioning now.
That's interesting. Thank you for the answer. Yeah, with our folks here are very quiet today. We're not getting any more comments. I think, Pavan, you could clarify just one thing, although you did say it clearly, but you could clarify just now. What is the next step for this current discussion that you presented? I mean, you have here a proposal.
So as I mentioned in my last one, but the last slide here. So right now we have been doing all these things because we have got a yes from the members. We presented it in May, and we have had several discussions within the SC. So far everything is officially okay, but for them to actually be put in practice, this has to give questions on how to put these things in the best words, so that what we are discussing now truly translate into an official document, which will be, of course, updated and registered, or which will be updated in the registered document in Brussels. because we are registered today as an international non-profit organization in Brussels. So for this, it needs a process.
Perfect, thank you. We're going to close this session now, and we're going to make the video available. So thank you all for participating, and have a good weekend.